I feel like I've reached the end game in terms of playing and upgrading Toxic Rain Pathfinder now, and I wanted to kind of go back and cover some of the changes I've made in the past week to really optimize the build, you know, making it stronger, tankier, faster, all that kind of stuff. I also wanted to talk about what I've been doing with it, and just the short version of that is I've been blasting tier 17s, and I've killed all 7 Uber bosses in one sitting right before going to sleep, so I was a little tired. They weren't too bad for the most part. I've also been doing some ritual stuff. We'll talk about that in another video. Hi, it's Lerald, and I'm going to talk about Toxic Rain Pathfinder, but first, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, I'm going to just jump right into the path of building here and talk about the big changes I've made in the last week, and we'll start with this main one here, this central gym combo, this sort of overlap here that I have. The Parandus Pact. And this is an idea that I got both from a combination of some really helpful comments on the past video and then also just, frankly, straight up stealing from Captain Lance. The Parandus Pact gives you these passive skill bonuses. They can sort of do a lot of different things. As you can see, it's in red text here, but it gives 6% increased chaos damage, and that's on top of whatever the small passives and the notables in here, but not the keystones, whatever they give. So like Sentinel, for example, it gives evasion rating and armor and elemental resistances, and then because of Parandus Pact being there, it also gives chaos damage as well. It doesn't override them, and that's important here. So you can line this up in sort of a combo here in this central Scion wheel where you have Parandus Pact affecting a large area that you're actually pathing through, and then you can path over to the side and throw on Natural Instinct there, and basically, you just want to put it in the set of nodes that you wouldn't use, like spell damage. That's worthless. That's fine. But we do want this attack speed, so since it's Unnatural Instinct, it'll pick up all of the nodes that we don't have allocated, all the small ones, so that gives us these 2 life nodes, these accuracy nodes that are worthless, these 3 attack speed nodes, this attack speed and dex node, this projectile damage and dex node, these 3 move speed nodes, which are very juicy. We're also pathing through Harrier, so we get a bit of move speed there. Basically, this all adds up to just make us feel like a lot faster. You know, it's about 14% more move speed, a lot of attack speed as well, and all totaled, there's also some int in here, 5 int nodes, and, you know, that's not bad. That's okay. The cast speed doesn't really do anything for us. And, you know, then a lot of other nodes over here. So I have mathed this out because it doesn't work in Path of Building, at least right now. Some of the Parandus Pacts do. I think the life one does, but not all of them do. So I mathed it out, and I think it's 32 nodes that are being affected, so that's 192% increased chaos damage, and if we just hash that out, we can see we go from 16 million combined DPS down to 13, about 3 million DPS from that combo, as well as the quality of life stuff. You know, we're getting some life and life on kill, we're getting a lot of move speed, we're getting just a lot of value, 10 dex, 10 int, a lot of value there. There's one other teeny tiny little bit of extra tech that I almost missed here, and that is this tattoo over here. Because we're using Unnatural Instinct, we get all the bonuses that were not allocated in the area that are small passives, and we lose all the ones that are. So what you can do is you can path over here. This is an int node. You can drop a tattoo of the Rangakurai turtle. I mean, technically you can use any int node tattoo, but those are the ones that I like the most. So you can drop that in there and then talent out of it or spec out of it, and then drop that Unnatural Instinct in here, and now you're actually getting that benefit of that one little tattoo. You can do this in a couple of other spots around the tree. I think the best ones are like right around here, where, you know, you'll take these 2 nodes to get there, but then you can tattoo here, here, and here, and you're getting those spots all for free. Some other spots as well, like red tattoos, aren't quite as valuable, but kind of the same situation here, where you can tattoo here, here, and here. Kind of the same at all of these little junctions around the tree, depending on what class you're playing, whatever. Just a little bit of tattoo tech that I really like. It also works really, really well over here in this node here. You can path up through here, spin these 2 int nodes to get in there, and then drop a, what is it called? I'm suddenly blanking on the name. Drop an Unnatural Instinct, yeah. And then tattoo up all the nodes around it and actually get benefit of that. Pretty cool. Now, in order to get this, I had to give up some stuff. I had to give up this atrophy wheel, which is very nice. It adds a lot of damage, and that skill effect duration is good. I also had to give up this cluster jewel here. As you can see, I've also changed all of my medium cluster jewels over from chaos damage cluster jewels. Other than the flask effect duration, that one stays. But as you can see, I've changed over these 2 cluster jewels to be projectile damage with repeater and shrieking bolts. Each of those gave me about a couple of % worth of damage. So not a huge difference, but I was at the point where, as you can see, I can cap my chaos res without those, without student of decay. So might as well swap those clusters over and get that bit of extra damage. This kind of leaves us in a bit of a conundrum here. Like, I would like to get that cluster jewel back or to get atrophy back. I would like to get that damage back. And unfortunately, like, I was not speccing into Sentinel or any of this. I wasn't speccing over to Harrier or any of this. So this costs 5 points. This costs 4. And so, like, that's 9 points that I had to give up here in the atrophy wheel and the cluster jewel in order to make this work. I'm still doing more damage, and I'm also, like, I have more life, I have more move speed, I have a lot more quality of life from this, but I have had to make some sacrifices. Oh, also, 2 things I wanted to cover in this area here. You'll see that in-game, I have cold and lightning res, but in the POB, I have the proj damage. And the reason is I'm swapping that back and forth depending on whether I'm doing back to basics or I'm doing blue Eldritch Altar farming. If I'm doing blue Eldritch Altar farming, I want that extra cold and light res so that I can offset the minus cold and light res debuff from blue Eldritch Altars. Otherwise, I'm way over cap and I don't need it, and I want to take the proj damage. It's only about 1.5%, 2% more damage, but hey, that's free damage. The other thing I wanted to cover as well is I picked up increased area of effect implicits on the Unnatural Instinct and the Parandus Pact. Now, getting that on an Unnatural Instinct, not too bad. Pretty affordable, as you can see. There's enough of them going around to be able to pick some up. It's a little bit of a price increase, but not too bad. The Parandus Pact, on the other hand, that's a bit of a price hike. It definitely was a lot more difficult to pick up. You can get increased area of effect on your rare jewels. That's a lot easier to find than on unique jewels, or you can just stick with getting it on your amulet and your gloves. That also works. That is totally fine. All of those are totally acceptable options. I just went with that because I wanted to free up my neck prefix because I was playing around with some crafted necks where I didn't have access to make an increased area of effect prefix on the neck, and it was a whole thing. But basically I got those 2 jewels, and that kind of sorted out the second bit of area of effect that I needed from gear. And so then I've been able to just run like whatever as a crafted prefix. I suppose I could do life, give myself a bit more life. I don't really need the non-channeling mana skill cost, but that's what I've been going with for now. Is there something I could drop to pick back up the cluster of, the cluster jewel here or atrophy or something like that? And why am I not running mana? I think the issue here probably is that I would drop Eldritch Battery. If I were to try to pick that up, I would swap out of Devouring Diadem. I would craft up a very nice expensive helm. I would switch over to a Clarity setup, which I already have Unfortunately, I have a Purity Clarity Watcher's Eye, so I would have to drop Purity and switch to Clarity, and so I'd still be making use of most of this jewel, but not the whole thing. And then I would drop all of these nodes here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nodes of travel up here, this whole 3-point wheel, these 2 nodes here as well, and this mastery for increased energy shield from the helmet. I would still come over and take Written in Blood. It's life, it's strength, it's a 2-pointer for a lot of life. It's good. And then we would spend 5 points coming up this way. So that's about 12 points worth of nodes over here in this area that we would be able to recover in order to spend on other things. But then I would want to spend one of those on 15% chance to suppress spell damage if helmet, body armor, blah, blah, blah are all evasion rating, which they all would be, and then 5 points on travel. So that would only leave 6 points left over to spend on picking stuff back up, which I think would either basically be I could pick up the cluster jewel, and then I could take this 2-point node here and just get another jewel socket. That would work. Or I could put the 5 points into atrophy and then probably drop Flask Mastery, the 4% of life when you use a flask. It's good. It is a lot of healing. It does add up to be a decent amount of healing, but you get a ton of healing from your life flask, especially when you're running Tides of Time. You're getting 2,500 life per second or so. Let's see, what does it actually say? 2690. So do I really need this mastery? Probably not. So we could take atrophy and then get this 2-point node, and that also could work. And that would be more damage than what we're currently running. But I don't love it. And so why have I not done that? There are 3 things you lose when you switch out of using Eldritch Battery, when you switch out of using Devouring Diadem, that I just kind of don't want to give up. The first one, very simple, is the ability to run no regen maps. It's good quality of life. I just don't want to lose it. Second is Caustic Arrow, which I have really fallen in love with in this build. So you can run Caustic Arrow on a Mana Forged Arrow support, but Mana Forged Arrows, if we come over to Lily and look at her here, Mana Forged Arrows has a 200% cost and reservation multiplier. It's huge, and it only triggers if you spent 300% of the mana cost of the linked skill. So you have to use either a life tap support to convert that cost into life, which then means you're spending like a couple hundred life every time you trigger that, which is a lot. Or you have to use inspiration support and then a bunch of other tech that you're using to lower the cost of your main Toxic Rain to completely zero out the cost of your Caustic Arrow. Either way, when you're doing this, you're going to basically only be running Caustic Arrow on a 4-link setup. So you'd run Caustic Arrow, Mana Forged Arrows. Let's say you're running Inspiration support, so it's not costing you hundreds of life per second to cast. You probably would run Awaken Void Manipulation. You definitely run Awaken Arrow Nova. They don't have to be Awakened, but it's better if they are. If you're putting all that cost into it, you might as well be running Awaken supports there. Caustic Arrow, Arrow Nova, Void Manipulation, and Swift Affliction. That's a 4-link, and Arrow Nova's not even really that strong of a damage node. I mean, it literally is less damage. Not great. The alternative, I think, is to run a sort of a 4-link, or I guess a 6-link support setup instead. And what you would do for that is you would run a Toxic Rain of Withering, you would run an Ensnaring Arrow, and a Frenzy. You would just have all 3 of those hooked up to Mana Forged Arrows, Culling Strike, and greater multiple projectiles. Don't know why I'm struggling with how to say GMP. There we go. That's why we call it GMP, I guess. We would run basically GMP, Culling, and Mana Forged Arrows together. And so with those 3 skills in there, you wouldn't have to do anything to lower their cost because they're all only being supported by 3 different skills that have, Culling Strike's cost increase is very small. So all 3 of those, Frenzy, Toxic Rain of Withering, and Ensnaring Arrow, would all be very cheap. The downside of this is you're not getting this amazing clear by running that as your support setup, your Mana Forged Arrow setup. You're not getting all the extra amazing clear that you get out of Caustic Arrow. So it's really good for maximizing your single target damage. You will deal a lot more damage to bosses and tanky targets. That's good, but you lose all the clear speed by not having Caustic Arrow. And I value the clear speed from Caustic Arrow more than the single target damage benefit that I would get out of a Toxic Rain of Withering, Frenzy, Culling Strike setup. Bossing is kind of in a bit of a bad place right now, frankly, based on some recent Reddit posts that I've seen of people running 100 plus Uber bosses in a row and then like losing 50, 80 divines doing it. And Toxic Rain Pathfinder is much better as a mapping build than a bossing build anyways. So I would rather maximize the build's strengths than boost its weaknesses. And I've had really like great success doing tier 17s and using Caustic Arrow to clear out most of the map and then just focusing on Toxic Raining down the elites, the rare mobs, the tanky guys, and then obviously the bosses. And then third, I think maybe the biggest issue for me is you cannot run a Divine Blessing support in a mana setup. You would have to give that up, which means you would have to, I mean, there's a positive to it, right? That means fewer buttons to push. You don't ever have to maintain a Divine Blessing support if you're playing mana. So that's good. It's more convenient. It's definitely like smoother, easier. But it does mean you have to give up one of your auras. You have to give up either Purity of Elements, Grace, Haste, or Malevolence. Well, you're not giving up Malevolence. I don't think you should give up Haste either, which means it's Grace or Purity of Elements. Giving up Grace is a bad idea. But I have a Purity Watcher's Eye. I have a Purity Conversion Watcher's Eye. I am using Purity to get my resistances up and capped and to give myself ailment immunity. So that would mean like you'd have to swap to Soul of the Brine King to be able to avoid being frozen and stunned, and then you'd be vulnerable to shock. Or you'd have to get ailment immunity through your boots, and then that requires reconfiguring all of your gear significantly. So I kind of just like the setup that I have going right now since, I've been able to use it to kill Ubers. I killed all 7 Ubers on the single set of like Uber fragments. I didn't brick any of them. I got close on Uber Maven. I played that one really bad. I was too tired to be doing that boss, but I did get her. And, ultimately, I think if you're able to kill the Ubers and you're able to clear tier 17s, I don't know that you really need to optimize the build much more than that. Okay, now I want to talk about the other 2 things I've done to upgrade the build over the last week, and those would be 2 big gear upgrades. The first is this amulet that I made. and boy, it was a real task. And then the other was this quiver, and that was actually very pleasant, very like easy breezy by comparison. So I'll start with the amulet. I bought a Fractured Dot Multi-Agate Amulet, eye level 82 or so, and I started rolling it with Alteration Orbs. At the time, my plan was, just like I have here, to make a +2 amulet. I had something like 4,500 Orbs of Alteration. The odds of rolling +1 to all skill gems on a amulet, like a magic amulet using Alteration Orbs that has a Fractured Dot Multi-suffix, is about 1 in 2,500, so I figured I was like, that's good, 4,500. I'm over-prepared. Last league, it took me about 4,500, and I think I had like 8,000 of them or 6,000 or something, if I remember correctly. So like, I felt pretty good about this. I also compared the cost of buying a Fractured +1 to all skill gems amulet like I have here, and that was about 15 or 16 divines more expensive than the Dot Multi Fractured amulet, so I felt like I was good. Smash cut to 5 hours later and 24 divine orbs worth of alterations. My arm was ready to fall off. I had enlisted my channel manager to click on my neck for me for a while, and ultimately I still didn't have an amulet. My channel manager just finally said, like, you need to stop doing this. It's ruining your day. You've wasted at least 5 hours. What could you have done in that time? All great points. I had made the initial calculation on the cost. It was supposed to be way, way cheaper to craft the neck this way than the way that I've always done it in the past, but the odds just weren't in my favor this time, like, to a preposterous degree. So I tried swapping to the graveyard in an attempt to make myself some agate amulets with Fractured +1 to all skill gem bases, and I did, but unfortunately the 1+1 Fractured all skill gem neck that I made also had a Fractured rarity prefix, and I really wanted that open prefix to craft AoE on, so that wouldn't work for me. I wound up just buying a Fractured +1 all skill gems agate amulet for about 20 divines. I ultimately crafted up and sold some of the necks I made from the graveyard, and I actually came out ahead in the end. And I made the neck that I'm wearing right now, just like with the base that I bought from somebody else. So I will walk through the two different ways to make a +2 amulet, the old way and the new way. My initial plan, I gotta say, with the cursed amulet, the one that I put like 24 or 25 divines worth of alts into it, was to just like vol it and brick it in this recording, but I actually sold it off to somebody else, and I hope it has not ruined their life in the way that it did mine. I actually made like 1 divine profit selling the base off to them compared to what I had bought it for initially, so hooray, only technically 23 divines in the hole. All right, so let's start with the old way of making a +2 amulet. So we would start with an agate amulet. We want strength and int, so we're always going to run with an agate amulet, and we want it to be fractured, so no influences at all. We don't want any influence mods. So the suffix that we want, we can actually look at this in the calculator. It's always a good thing to double check everything in the calculator. The things that we want on it are +1 to all chaos skill gems, +1 to all gems. Those are both eye level 75. Easy. The suffix that we want, a T1 dot multi suffix, that's 82 eye level, so we want it to be an 82 eye level item. Easy. It can be higher, but being higher means that more mods can roll on it. It's a little harder to roll, and usually a little more expensive, so we'll go with 82. So what I bought initially was this, a Fractured T1 dot multi amulet, and then I just rolled it with alts, and I rolled it with alts for over 12,000 clicks, and yeah, that was tough. That was a bad use of time. Now, ultimately, what I was going for was this, and this is the way that I have historically crafted it. Instead of 12,000 clicks, more like 2,500 clicks, you get like this, then you regal it, and you hope for a suffix. It's not the end of the world if you get a prefix, but you do hope for a suffix. Okay, so since we got a prefix, this is kind of the worst case scenario. What we're going for here, before we do any sort of fancy meta crafting, is we're trying to get 2 suffixes, because what we want to do is we want to ultimately use the harvest crafting add remove chaos, and we want to have all of our chaos or all of our suffixes blocked when we do that, so that it is guaranteed to add a chaos prefix. There's only one chaos prefix that exists. If we type that in, chaos, the chaos prefix that exists that we're capable of getting is +1 to level of all chaos skill gems. So what we will do here, because we unfortunately got a prefix, is we will just craft any prefix on. Doesn't matter. Increased energy shield, go. All right, then we will slap an exalt on, and just, it'll be whatever it is. Then we craft prefixes cannot be changed, which is a suffix. So now here we have what we're looking for. This is what we're looking to have every time we do any sort of metacraft on the neck where we're adding and removing a chaos. We're looking to have fewer than 3 prefixes and exactly 3 suffixes. So we have, and one of those has to be prefixes can't be changed. So we have our fractured dot multi-suffix, we have this random garbage here, we have prefixes can't be changed, we have +1 to all skill gems, and then unfortunately this fizz damage to attacks prefix. That's fine, we hit add remove chaos, and it is guaranteed to add +1 to all chaos skill gems and a prefix, and then it'll remove one of these 2 suffixes. We got lucky. So now what we would do is we would basically just like craft something that we want to block. Like, I don't know what it is that we would want to block, dexterity or accuracy rating or something. And then we would slap an exalt on, hope for the best, and then we would craft whatever suffix it is that we want. Now that would be sort of the unideal version. If we got a little bit luckier when we hit the regal and we had just immediately crafted on a suffix, like, all right, we're just gonna fudge it here and go remove that and just say like, we got, I don't know, what's a good suffix? What about T1 all res? That would be nice. So what we would do here is we would just jump immediately to crafting prefixes can't be changed. And then we would do that harvest, add chaos, remove random mod, and hope it doesn't remove the T1 all res, which it seems like it really feels like it wants to do that. And then what we would be able to do here is we would actually craft a prefix on that we want, like non-channeling skills have minus mana cost or something. And then we would just slap an exalt and hope it's good. It's not. And so that is the normal way that we've historically done a +2 dot multi amulet. The problem with it is that rolling to get that +1 all skill gems can be brutal, as it was in my case. All right, so here is how we will craft this neck in, I think, the more expensive to start up kind of way, but in a way that ultimately I think will save a lot of time. So we'll start with an eye level 82 agate amulet, same as before, but we're going to start with it having fractured +1 to all skill gems on it. So we'll fracture that, and then we're going to spam it with alteration orbs until we get tier 1 dot multi, kind of going at this from the opposite direction, but the crafting cost, the sort of meta crafting cost and the harvest cost around it will actually wind up being cheaper. So once we've rolled all the way up to this, you know, +1 to level of all skill gems, T1 dot multi, we're going to regal it, and it doesn't actually matter what happens here. Ultimately, what we're wanting to do is we're going to want to, you know, we're going to only have 3 mods on it because of the regal. So we're going to want to craft suffixes can't be changed. And then we're going to want to exalt it until we have full suffixes. So those were actually pretty good suffixes. Those are actually really good suffixes. The main thing that we're looking for here is to make sure there aren't any empty suffixes before we do this. We want to have suffixes can't be changed on there beforehand as well. And then we just go to the harvest bench, and for 100 yellow juice, this bad boy right here, chaos, we're going to reforge with random modifiers, including a chaos mod. So we put suffixes can't be changed, which means the dot multi can't be removed. The other mods that we've crafted on with exalt can't be removed. And that's important, right? If we're missing, like if we do have an empty suffix mod and we do a reforge chaos, we could get chaos res, which, you know, maybe that's something we want, but it could also fill up our prefixes. We don't really want to deal with that. So we want to have full suffixes because there's only one chaos mod that we can get if we reforge chaos, and that would be a chaos prefix. So here we go. Boom. We've reforged. We've got +1 all skill gems, +1 to chaos skill gems, and there we go. That is the cheap version of doing it. All right, now the downside to doing it this way is sometimes this can happen. You can fill up all of your prefixes. Now, if you're capable of just rolling with it, that is ideal. That is ultimately why I went with the AoE skill effect on gem implicits. On gem implicits in my passive tree, like these 2 bad boys right here were basically my way of just dealing with the fact that I didn't have a craftable prefix for a little while. You have a couple of options. You can just basically sell this off and start from buying another base, or you can try to annul it, which probably won't work. You know, usually you're going to get unlucky. See, like, I would say that rarely happens that you actually succeed on the RNG annul, but that is an option. Or, you know, you can just try and recraft it. Sell off your mistake and recraft it is generally the better idea. I will say, though, just generally speaking, that this setup, doing it like this instead of doing an add remove, you know, you can do add remove chaos. If you get to this point where you have an empty prefix and you have full suffixes, you can do the add remove chaos and that'll guarantee it. It is substantially more expensive. It's about 3 divines worth of yellow juice. And then also a sacred crystallized life force. Like if we look at the difference in chaos crafts here, we're talking 100 yellow juice versus 17,500 yellow juice and a sacred crystallized life force. It is a little bit more guaranteed though if you're in this situation of just the one prefix, the fractured one and a crafted one and 3 suffixes. That is also an option. The add remove will never let you down in this situation, but if you're in the situation where you do have just any prefix already, you know, this one right here, like you can do this and it won't have space, right? So it won't be able to do that. Ultimately, it won't have the space to add the chaos. So you would have to reforge in that situation. And I would say, generally speaking, just playing with reforging, you know, usually I feel like, now that I'm saying it, it's not happening, but usually I feel like I do actually wind up with an empty space more often than not. So I would say the odds are decent to not get screwed over, but ultimately, you know, it's RNG, right? It's GGG. Sometimes you're going to lose. That's just kind of the way it goes. All right, my other in-game craft went much better, and that would be the double dot multi quiver that I have here. As you can see, T1 increased damage with bow skills, increased movement speed is also T1, and then T1 dot multi and chaos dot multi. The only thing I'm unhappy with is the T5 life, but I am living with that for now. And so the way that we do that, the way we craft that, is just to kind of, again, go through the whole process of like always checking your work. You want to come in and you want to look like, what are the mods that we want? Well, first off, we want this to be a broadhead arrow quiver, and we do want it to be hunter influenced. So we're looking at hunter mods. We see eye level 80 on the increased move speed, eye level 80 on the chaos dot multi, and eye level 82 on dot multi with attack skills. Eye level 64 on T1 max life. Okay, great. But eye level 86 for T1 increased damage with bow skills. So we really do want it to run an eye level 86 hunter quiver. Now those can be expensive. Ultimately, I use the graveyard to craft up a bunch of influenced eye level 86 broadhead arrow quivers. And then I use blue harvest juice to re-roll those to hunter influence and sold most of them off for profit. I just kept one. That is a good little money making tip for you. You can use split corpses to double up on making crafting bases with the graveyard. I've done that with hunter thicket bows, 6-link, and like shaper Stygian vises as well. So we'll start with a broadhead arrow quiver, eye level 86, hunter, good to go. Now, no fracturing on this since it is influenced. Instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to reforge chaos. We're just going to reforge chaos over and over and over again. And I did this for a really long time. I farmed a lot of harvests to do this. And what we're looking to get, we're looking to get one specific thing. We're looking to get, well, 2 specific things, but one combo of them. We're looking to get T1 chaos dot multi with attack skills, the hunter suffix, and then we're looking to get the baseline, just base mod pool suffix, T1 dot multi with attack skills. Personally, I wouldn't proceed unless I had both of these at T1. Now, once we've done that, we then, if we don't have a free suffix, we have to play the annul game. I had this happen 4 times before I successfully annulled what I was looking to annul, which in this case would be the fire res. Incredible. Of course, I get it on the first shot in the emulator. Excellent. So, you know, if we get unlucky and we annul one of the good mods, then we go back to harvest chaos re-rolling. That's just how it goes. We don't care about the prefixes at all. We only care about the suffixes. We want T1 chaos dot multi, T1 regular dot multi with attack skills, both of those important, and then a free suffix. Once we have that, we can do this. We can come down and we can craft. The crafted modifier cannot roll attack modifiers. And the reason for that is, if we look at quivers, offhands quiver, we click attack mod, and then we'll set it to, we'll just set it to broadhead arrow quiver just for the sake of it. And hunter, if we look at attack mods, the stuff that is slashed through and grayed out is the stuff that is not attack mods. So all of this is attack mods. And, you know, None of the hunter ones are attack mods, prefixes. So we're full on suffixes, right? We have cast .multi, and cannot roll attack mods. Those are all suffixes, so we're clear. So the only things that we can roll, the only things that we can interact with currency are non-attack mods. So we can annul, and that will remove potentially the suffix. If it does, that crafted cannot roll attack mods, so we need to recraft that, but it cannot roll off. You cannot annul either of the two .multi suffixes off. But you can't annul yourself by annulling off the cannot roll attack mods crafted suffix, which does cost a divine. So this is an expensive craft. And then what you basically do is you just sit here and you exalt until you're happy with the max life, the max move speed, and the T1 damage with both skills, because those are the only things you can roll on with exalts. If you're happy with them, great. If you're not happy with them, annul them off. And if you ever annul off cannot roll attack mods, you want to recraft it. Oh my god, I'm having real bad luck here. And so you basically just want to do this. You just want to sit here and spam exalt annul until you are happy with your prefixes. And you can run projectiles pierce another target. That is an option, especially since we're playing Caustic Arrow. It is kind of nice to have pierce from somewhere. I would not run that instead of life or damage with attack skill or bow skills damage this mod. I would run that instead of the move speed, and I'd rather have the move speed. So I chose not to do that and just stuck with the glove implicit. Yeah, see here I've made a quiver that is better than the one I am currently wearing because it has a higher life roll, but T1 damage with bow skills, T1 move speed, T1 chaos dot, T1 dot. And then finally, whenever you feel like you've re-rolled your prefixes enough, make sure you don't scour, make sure you don't chaos, make sure you're only playing with the cannot roll attack mods, and then annul exalt, and you're just doing that until you're happy with your prefixes. Once you're done, you come over here and you look for attack speed, and then you just roll that until you get 12%. Then you want to make sure you use a blessed orb, get 10% attack speed on your implicit, and then bam, there you go, you're done. An absolutely insane quiver, and you know, in this case, it didn't cost that much. It probably cost me like 15 or 20 divines to actually make it in real life, which this league, that actually was cheaper than usual and definitely cheaper than my amulet. Okay, so I may make more changes to the build, but I honestly don't think I need to. Like I said, I killed the Uber bosses, and although I need to do one more Uber boss kill achievement for this right here, Colossal Conditionals, that challenge, I'm thinking I'll probably just try to do Cortex without being hit by the Wormhole Slam this time. I don't really think I need to make any changes to pull that off. That boss was pretty easy. I got hit by the Wormhole Slam. I think I had automation support on, and it put Withering Step on cooldown right as I was trying to hit Flame Dash, and so it wouldn't cast. I can live with that, but you know, if I want the challenge, I probably will have to turn automation support off when I'm dealing with the Wormhole Slam. I am having a lot of fun with this league and with this build. I'm not 100% certain that this is the strongest version of Toxic Rain Pathfinder I've ever made. The Charms and Affliction League were really insane, but I think it probably is. The Tides of Time is an absolutely insane belt. I love it. The synergy between it, Life Flask, and Progenesis, and Taste of Hate even, is completely bonkers for keeping yourself alive. I actually do think that this has been better than the Mage Blood setup. When I was doing some of the Ubers, not all of them, but some of them, I did drop this Quicksilver Flask for a Topaz Flask that has the same, pretty close to the same rolls on it. I'm not sure what tab it's in. Here it is, this one right here. You know, reduced effect or increased effect and reduced duration, so it's a little bit stronger, but then chance to avoid being stunned, that was really important. But I did run this instead of Quicksilver Flask. I just ran this setup. It was actually easier to deal with some of the mechanics, like dodging Uber Shaper phases, dodging ball phases on Exarch was easier this way. I think I actually ran a Ruby Flask for Exarch, but either way, you know, I ran either a Ruby or a Topaz Flask for a lot of the Uber bosses and no Quicksilver, and that was fine. I think that probably would be a good idea for tier 17s as well, but I refuse to move slowly. I just won't do it. I did kill Uber Shaper Deathless, and I got a perfect Tides of Time. It's the one I'm wearing now. The one I was wearing before, I still have in a stash tab. I haven't sold it off or like tried to double corrupt it yet, but I probably will double corrupt one of these at some point here. I'm just feeling squirrely. I feel like it's gonna poof as soon as I click it, you know? Ultimately, I am pretty happy with how that went. I would say the other 6 bosses, I don't know that I even made like 2 divines worth of drops from them. They definitely weren't a good use of time, but they were still fun to do and just kind of get some work in on the league challenges, prove that they could be done with Toxic Rain Pathfinder, you know, all that usual stuff. So that's Toxic Rain Pathfinder. It's the same good, consistent, fast build it has always been. GGG nerfed the mana going into this league, and it doesn't matter. Toxic Rain Pathfinder keeps going. It does everything. It clobbers tier 17s, it clears Zubers, but you know, they're pretty unrewarding, so I wouldn't really recommend them unless you're trying to get your challenges done or you're just, I don't know, willing to throw away currency. All right, that's it. I hope this helps with continuing to progress your build and continuing to have fun throughout the league. Thanks for watching. Bye.